Our story begins with a family where suddenly younger son Jin regains consciousness. The mother becomes worried, and everyone thinks he must have had a bad dream. This family is moving into their new house, a house they have never seen before, yet it feels strangely familiar to him. Jin's elder brother, Yoo, has always been excellent in his studies since childhood. He graduated from a prestigious university and has always been the best performer in extracurricular activities. He can handle every small or big task at home easily and has no bad habits. He is the ideal son. Jin, too, wishes he could be like his elder brother someday. A year ago, Yoo had an accident, and since then, he walks with a limp. Both brothers move into the same room because the old owner of the house forbade them from opening the second room. One day, a man enters Jin's room and questions him. He cannot believe that you could really be Jin's elder brother. Jin insists that even though they don't look alike, they are real brothers. At that moment, Yoo arrives and tells the men to leave immediately. That night during dinner, Jin is again forbidden from going into the other room because the old owner hasn't yet removed his belongings. He is also reminded to take his medicine on time. Suddenly, Jin hears strange noises from upstairs. He feels like someone is up there, but everyone else denies hearing anything. Before going to sleep, Jin listens to some music but hears the noises again. Suspicious, he tries to open the other room's door, but Yoo appears and stops him. Jin tells him he heard something, but Yoo dismisses it as an excuse to avoid studying. Yoo takes him outside for some fresh air. They enjoy the rainy weather together until Yoo receives a call from their father, asking him to return home urgently. Yoo tells Jin to wait there and leaves. Jin, unaware of what is about to happen, walks toward the road while listening to songs and suddenly sees his brother being kidnapped by a group of men. He chases after them but cannot catch up, though he memorizes the car's number plate. Jin rushes home and tells his parents everything before fainting. When he wakes, detectives have arrived, and he recounts the entire story, including the car's number. The detective, however, says the number plate doesn't exist. Jin insists he saw it clearly, but the detectives dismiss it, saying it was dark and raining, and he must have made a mistake. Days pass without any ransom calls. 2 weeks go by, yet there is no news of Yoo. Every night, Jin dreams of a man who looks familiar but whom he cannot recognize. Strange noises return from the other room, and when Jin opens the door, he wakes to find it was only a dream. On the 19th day, Yoo suddenly returns home. The family rejoices, and the doctor explains that Yoo suffers from dissociative amnesia, which erased all memories of his kidnapping. One night, Jin feels someone near him and notices Yoo's bed empty. He falls asleep again, and by morning, Yoo is back. Later, while taking his anxiety pills, they fall to the floor. Yoo enters and asks him to eat something. Jin asks if Yoo went out the previous night, but Yoo denies it, claiming Jin must have dreamed it. As Yoo leaves, Jin notices he isn't limping anymore. Yoo brushes it off as a joke, though he is seen limping again outside. Confused, Jin eats silently. That night, while studying, Jin falls asleep at his desk. Yoo approaches him, staring intensely, and slowly moves a pencil tip near Jin's eye. Just before it touches, the tip breaks. Yoo doesn't notice that Jin is awake and watching. Horrified, Jin leaves the house and secretly follows Yoo, who now walks perfectly fine. Jin follows him in a taxi, feeling increasingly uneasy. Yoo meets the detectives who handled his kidnapping case, and to Jin's shock, they treat Yoo as their superior. Jin follows him everywhere but is eventually caught by the detectives. He hides but is knocked unconscious by Yoo. When Jin wakes, he finds himself tied to a table, terrified, and sees Yoo standing nearby. Panicking, he locks himself in the bathroom. Yoo asks him to open the door, but Jin accuses him of meeting the detectives and trying to harm him with the pencil. Yoo insists it was all a dream caused by missed medication and forces Jin to take his pills. As Yoo leaves, Jin notices he is limping again. Then, he spots the broken pencil tip still on his desk, realizing last night truly happened. Moreover, Jin never told you about the taxi, so how did you know? He tells his mother everything, and she becomes worried. Jin warns that if he goes out again, he will tell his father. That night, hearing noises from the forbidden room, Jin enters and finds Yoo's body hanging. He wakes up screaming, it was another nightmare. He overhears his mother telling someone about Jin's behavior. Hearing footsteps, she checks the door, but Jin has already slipped out. She searches the house as Jin climbs a pipe to his room and lies on the bed, pretending to sleep. When she checks on him, she finds him drenched but asleep. Jin becomes increasingly disturbed, unable to understand his family's behavior. He runs away, but his mother sends someone to follow him. While fleeing, Jin collides with a police car and tells them everything. They check his records and claim he was born in 1977 and is 41 years old. Jin argues he is only 21, but the police laugh, saying it is the year 2017. He looks around, seeing smartphones and tablets everywhere. Shocked, he looks at his reflection and sees the face of a middle-aged man staring back. Confused and frightened, Jin returns home to find the room in chaos, as if a murder had taken place. Yoo appears, saying, "My plan failed again." He tells Jin that 20 years ago, on December 20, 1997, a family was murdered in that house, a mother and daughter killed with a sharp knife. Nothing was stolen, and no clues were found. It became a cold case. The victim's family hired a private investigator, and eventually, the killer was found, but he remembered nothing. Jin insists he isn't the killer, but Yoo claims he is. A forensic hypnosis expert named Dr. Park is brought in, the same man who had played Jin's father earlier. He explains that Jin's memory had been erased due to trauma. They conduct an experiment to make Jin believe that his life before the trauma is real. Under hypnosis, Dr. Park tells Jin that he is traveling back through a tunnel to his happy memories in 1997, resting his head on his mother's shoulder in the car while moving to their new house. When Jin awakens, he finds himself outside that same house, the one from the beginning. Everything begins to make sense. The men who doubted Jin and Yoo's relationship did so because Jin appeared older than Yoo, though he claimed Yoo was his elder brother. When Jin first heard noises from the other room, it was because the team preparing the staged scene accidentally dropped something. Yoo had stopped Jin from entering because they were setting up the room to look exactly as it did during the murder, to trigger his memory. It was raining, just like on the night of the crime, and the same music played in the background. Everything was ready, but before the plan could proceed, Yoo was arrested, and Jin mistook it for another kidnapping. 19 days later, Yoo was released and tried to resume the experiment, waiting for another rainy day. But Jin's suspicions grew, and his memory remained locked. Eventually, Jin, in denial, jumped from a moving car, followed by Yoo, whose car crashed. Jin escaped but was soon in an accident himself and woke up in a hospital. There, his lost memories came flooding back, the car accident in 1997 that killed his parents and severely injured his brother. During the Korean economic crisis, Jin was desperate for money for his brother's surgery. With no job or loan, he posted online, offering to do anything for money. A doctor contacted him, offering cash in exchange for murder. Desperate, Jin agreed. He was told to kill a woman in a house, the same house from the beginning. When he arrived, he found a happy family and changed his mind, but in the chaos, he accidentally killed the daughter, then the mother. Traumatized, he left the house but was confronted by a young boy, the doctor's son, asking for his mother. Jin told him to count to 100, promising his mother would come. Jin then realized the doctor had sent him to kill his own wife for insurance money. Enraged, Jin confronted the doctor, who justified his actions by saying he did it for his children, just as Jin did it for his brother. The confrontation turned deadly, and the doctor fell to his death. The trauma shattered Jin's mind, sending him into depression. Back in 2017, Yoo tries to inject Jin with poison, but Jin apologizes for everything. Yoo realizes Jin's memories have returned. The truth is revealed, the little boy Jin met that night was Yoo himself, the doctor's son. Yoo tells Jin that after the murders, his relatives took all the money, and he sought revenge on the men who destroyed his family. Jin apologizes again, hiding the fact that Yoo's father had orchestrated it. Yoo understands but cannot forgive completely. He leaves, knowing his father caused everything. Overwhelmed, Yoo injects himself with poison, ending his life. Jin, unable to bear the guilt and his restored memories, does the same. Both die. The narrator concludes. The decisions we take out of helplessness can change not only our own lives but also others. Never choose death, it gives nothing. The story ends, leaving the question, how should this story have ended? Until next time, take care of yourself and your loved ones. Bye-bye.